Part in a series about how do we hire people, especially in the tough environment we are right now, where unemployment is very low and people can pretty much be picky and choose. And we all know that small businesses are having a really difficult time hiring people. I mean, you can get paid, $18, $19 to start at a fast food restaurant. Times have changed. When only a few years ago you could pay 12 or $13 an hour. So we're going to talk about the second aspect of the hiring process today, and that's what we call sourcing. Sourcing is basically finding people to even start the idea with. Finding resumes, finding available people, finding people that are potentials. So we're going to talk about that. And when it comes to hiring in general, we've got to really change our philosophy. If you're my age, I'm 51, almost 52, and when I grew up, it was all about money, and the 80s excess and all that good stuff when I'm in my formative years. And we for years, used to take that philosophy with our company when we were hiring people. We would just pay higher than the market price and throw money at people, and that was usually enough. But these days we have a whole generation that's different in workers in our society is valuing different things. So we have to change with the times, even if we don't want to. If we want to stay in business, we want to be effective, especially at things like hiring. We've got to change. And culture and society, the younger people have been brought up in the society to value things outside of money. So value things like what are they doing? What are they part of as a company? Is it changing the world, so to speak? Are they environmentally friendly? All those type of non-money type of things. Are they family oriented? The work-life balance. Do they offer remote work? All those good things. And so we got to take that into account. And in this market, we can't really sit back and expect people to beg us to work for us. We're not in that kind of economy right now. We're in the kind where we got to be aggressive and we got to market to them people just like we would market to any prospect we're trying to sell our product or service to. We got to sell our potential employees and team members that way. So, how do we do that? There's a lot of ways, but again, we have to focus on the things that are not necessarily money related. One of the cool things is you can do is if your company is in a specific industry where, you got like, pick an outdoor company, REI, the camping store or whatever. What kind of employees are going to be attracted to that type of thing? Somebody like me who, my idea of camping is going to the local Marriott, where I can get clean sheets and a nice shower. No, you want people who like camping, who like outdoorsy stuff, those are the people that are be attracted to it. So we've got to look for those people and we got to market to, just like we're marketing to prospects that we're trying to bring in as new customers. We've got to understand how to market to these people. So, so how do we do this? Again, we can use things like, from a marketing standpoint, use things like testimonials, like a site like Glassdoor that has ratings about employers and testimonials, anonymous or otherwise from current or past employees. And, what we do is we'll have our employees go on there and obviously the happy ones we want them to say something about what it's like to work for our company. And we will kind of coach them in the sense that we'll give them an idea of the kind of things to bring up, the things about, the values of the company, the mission, what they're part of, the industry that they're in, how much they're making a difference, and of course, that they get fair compensation, all that stuff. But that's really not what matters to people these days. If you do any kind of, or look at any kind of survey about job seekers and, what's important to them, compensation is usually, it's definitely not number one, and it's usually like number 3 or 4 as far as priorities and what's important to them. So we got to keep that in mind. But, the mechanics of, how do we do this? Well, we start off, and it should be kind of a given in this environment that we need to offer above market compensation. So, if you find out with a little research, Googling and stuff that, the average person that you're looking for this type of a job, the average salary is around 50,000, plus benefits or whatever. Well, you need to be at 55 or 60,000. And, this is the point where you don't want to be cheap about this because, all the reasons we've talked about in the past videos about how painful and how expensive this process is if you get it wrong. So, paying a little bit more for an employee makes total sense. We don't want to be cheap in this standpoint because it's much better to get employees that are going to stick with this versus having to a churn of employees because we tried to, get at market or under market. So pay over the market. That should be number one. Yeah, even though money is not everything and it's not that important to a lot of people, it does matter. When people are looking at two positions that look very similar, they're both changing the world, both have all those attributes we talked about. Well, the one with more money and the more benefits, that's going to win. And speaking of benefits, it's funny, when people, again, are surveyed about things, benefits are actually more important to particularly family people who have children, benefits like insurance and 401k and, all that stuff. And we can provide that these days as a small business. Like for our company, we pay not just, we offer health insurance, but most companies will pay 50% of the premium. We pay 100% of the premium for the employee. And yes, it's costly, but it makes a huge difference to people, and people actually value benefits more than they value the money again. And so just factor that in. If you figure you've got very good benefits and it's cost you $5,000 a year, well, you have to factor that into the compensation. Again, make it above market and focus on the benefits. Sell the benefits because people really dig that stuff. Like I said, it's going to appeal more to people who have a family than a 20-something who's single. Health insurance is, they want to have it, but it's not nearly as critical as somebody that's, in their 30s and just started a family, so to speak. So we got to use benefits as one of the things. These days, flexibility, of course, remote work has become very, very common, especially with COVID. And, a lot of us, unless there's a physical process that somebody's doing at an office, at a plant, whatever, we can get away with remote work. And at first, I just think, well, how can I trust people? How can I make sure they're doing their right job? All that kind of stuff. Well, if you do this process right and you bring in the right people, you don't have to worry about that because they're going to be performance-based people that you don't have to micromanage and you don't have to be looking over their shoulder. So you can easily do that remotely. And these days with technology and everything else, it makes it very, very easy. And so a benefit of us as a small employer, particularly in this environment where it's very competitive, is that we can hire. If we're here in Arizona, we can hire from all over the country. And, we've been doing that since the early 2000s, long before it was considered a norm. It used to be like, a big secret that a lot of our employees work from home, but we've been able to get that to work for years. And a lot of employees are figuring that out. And so, again, if we work hard and we bring in the right people, we don't have to worry about the micromanaging, which is the problem with that most people want to resist when they think about remote work. So offering that remote work, offering flexibility, they can work certain days of the week, things like that. Whatever, it's obviously going to depend on your company and what you need from people. But a lot of times, if we do a little work, we bring in the right people, and we figure out how to balance things. If we give somebody the opportunity where they can, work, early in the morning and get off earlier so they can go pick up their kids or whatever, or spend more time with the family, whatever the scenario is, that's going to mean a lot more to somebody, again, than just money. And that differentiates us and makes us more competitive in the job market. Of course, the question is, where do we find them, and how do we market to them? Well, number one, the very best source that we can find people is through referrals, and referrals of current employees, because the current employees are our biggest fans if they're happy. They know the ins and outs of the company, and people that they know that they can talk to about the company, immediately they have that trust. And so there's no question whether it's a good company or not. And so referrals are a fantastic way to do it. We've gotten a lot of our employees that way, and I guarantee you get higher quality people, and it's a much easier hiring process. There's all kinds of benefits to it. So ask your employees, for your help on this, because it makes a huge difference. Let them know who you're looking for, and let them know that anytime they run into somebody who's a good employee, that, a friend of theirs that works at another company or whatever, even if you're not hiring for that particular position, tell them to get the resume, tell them to, keep that contact line open so that when you are ready, you can take advantage and contact that person. In the same manner, we also want to use our clients or our customers, the ones that are our best customers and clients, mention to them when you're talking to them that, hey, we're looking for, XYZ type of person. Do you know anybody in your circle? And we've actually gotten great results with that as well. So again, that's the best kind of thing, just like in business, referrals of people are, the best kind of sales. Well, the referrals of people are the best kind of employees that we can find. So take advantage of that. And along with that, you can ask people in any group you're involved in, local to your community. You're involved in a business networking group, or, you're a member of a country club and you got a social circle or whatever, let those people know that what you're looking for. Virtually, if you're online, you're involved in certain Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, whatever, again, take advantage of that and let people know what you're looking for. Again, because of the personalization, it's vastly superior to other ways to do it. So one of the things that I was a recruiter, like a headhunter for, geez, it wasn't very long. It was like in my early 20s. I think it was like 9 months or something. I didn't last long. Just because I'd be a horrible CIA type of spy, because I have a really hard time, that questioning, kind of faking people out type of thing. And there's a certain amount of detective and, spy type of stuff going on, and to be a good recruiter. And I just had a hard time with that, mentally. I tend to just be very truthful with people and have a hard time, moving around that. Not to say anything bad about people in the recruiting industry, because they have a great service and nothing wrong ethically what they do. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But the point of all that is, I learned that, the best employees are actually already employed. So somebody who doesn't have a job, that's generally not who we're looking for. We're looking for somebody who's happily employed, who's good at what they're doing. Those are your A players. Generally the A players don't quit their job and hang out and look for something else. They do go, well, if they're disgruntled for whatever reason, or they're looking for a change, they will stay employed and do their thing. And then, it's much easier to recruit them, active employees, than it is somebody who's not looking for, who's not working right now. And another hint, a lady I work with that does very, very high-end recruiting over in Europe, out of London, and she had some really good advice for me one day. She said, when you're recruiting for somebody and you're looking for somebody, you're looking at a particular company and you can see, this executive and this person. She said, you don't want to go after let's say you're looking for a social media manager or whatever. There, in some company, maybe there's that person, you're looking for that particular position. You think, oh, that person would be great to work for us. But they're the head of that department over there. But the difference is there's somebody beneath them, like the second in command, if you will, their immediate, subordinate. And that person probably does most of the work, to be honest with you. They, the figurehead up there is doing their thing, but they're not as much in the trenches. They're not doing the day-to-day stuff, and they're not hungry. The person who's sort of second in command, if you will, a lot of times will feel like, geez, I do all the work and this person gets all the credit. And so she said, those are the people that you want to go after, because they've got the potential. They want to be in charge. They want to do everything because they're already doing everything. They just want the credit for it. So if you offer them that promotion, so to speak, they're going to be much more likely to be interested in that. So that's another way to keep that in mind. And this goes along with, like I said, the recruiting model. When we go through this whole process, you'll understand it is complicated, it's time consuming, it's costly, it's all those things. And, for a small business, sometimes it's hard. If you've ever talked to a, headhunter, recruiter type of thing, typically they want, 40% of the first year's salary, up front. That's their fee. So if you're paying somebody $100,000, their fee is $40,000 or something like that. It's pretty substantial, but it certainly makes sense for a small business. It's hard to come up with the kind of cash to do that most of the time. But if you've got that available, a recruiter can be, a good way to handle this whole process for you. And they can help you do this process. But quite frankly, most of us are not there. So if it's an option, great. But we just got to act like we're the recruiter and go through this whole process. And it's definitely worth our time because of all the reasons we've talked about in the past videos and the consequences of hiring the wrong person, how costly that is. So as much as it, let's face it sucks sometimes, and we don't like to do the hiring process. It's a necessary thing. That's why we get the big bucks, so to speak, as business owners. So, so we can use recruiting if we have to. And then there's sort of cold outreach, like sites like LinkedIn. They have ways to search for people that are in a particular industry that have the resume of the type of things that we're looking for that we talked about on the scorecard, those attributes that we're looking for those A players. And so we can reach out, just almost a cold call to these people and say, hey, this is what we're looking for. Would you have any interest, type of thing. And again, it's one step away from running an ad, but, it's not the worst thing. It does work, so that's a potential way to do it too. A lot of times we got to do all of the above. We got to do all these things just to generate this pool of candidates. Because at this point in the process, in the sourcing process, we want to get everybody who's potentially, in the market, anybody who, slightly fits what we're looking for. Then we can worry about narrowing it down in the later steps of the hiring process. So, and then, sort of the last one, I would say second last, is, similar to LinkedIn. It's those sites like Indeed and that sort of thing that allow people to post their resumes. So sometimes you can do searches for particular types of resumes that fit certain attributes, that sort of thing. And that's one step away from the final one, which is job postings. Job postings, unfortunately, are the least effective of all these techniques. And, I'm not saying they don't work. We did that for many years. And, when you, in this environment, you probably have to. Like I said, we want to spread as wide a net as we can, all possible sources. So having a job post, is important. But it all goes back to the scorecard that we talked about in the beginning. It's going to attract, the people. We're going to attract the A players, and it's going to repel the B and C players if we do the job posting right, if we do it based upon the scorecard. If we do it wrong, we're going to get a bunch of garbage that we're just have to wade through anyway. So job postings, they can work, but they're, the least effective of all these techniques. So again, referrals, number one, on that end of the spectrum, and then job postings on the other end of the spectrum. So, as I said, this takes time, and it takes help from other people in your company. You can't do this all yourself. If you're a solopreneur, you're just by yourself, you don't have any employees, then hey, you got to do it yourself. But if you have even one employee, you want to get them involved in this process, and we'll talk more about how to do that, particularly in the screening interview and the reference portion of it. But this is a lot of work. But again, we have to look at it, and we have to say, what are the consequences of getting this wrong? And if we get it wrong, it is so much more expensive that it is definitely worth our time and effort to put into this so that we make sure that we're attracting the right kind of people and we're going through the process properly, because the consequences are just too great if we screw this up. So we want to be as effective as we possibly can. So it's not fun, let's be real, and it takes time, and it can be discouraging, but you got to keep at it because it's definitely worth it. So, in the next segment, when I talk next, we're going to talk about screening, which is basically, now that we get this massive pool of people, hopefully, how do we start filtering that down? What's the process for doing that? I think that'll be real helpful for you. So I hope this was helpful. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please hit that little bell button on YouTube or whatever. Share this with your friends and colleagues. Let's get the word out about these videos, because I think, particularly in this environment, this will really help a lot of people. I know it's made a huge change in our difference using this process. It made a huge difference in our company and how long, our average employee has been here, 5 years plus in our company. It's because of this process. So share it with your friends, comment if you got any thoughts on it or any questions. We always get back to you personally, and appreciate your time today, and we'll see you on the next video.